Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis, 7 lines from the top. We're holding in the middle of the sugya. We had a machlokes how to interpret the brisa. The brisa said that Kesidur b'chol kach sidur b'Shabbos. Div Rav Shmuel. The Rav Shmuel says that the order that we do it during the week, that's the way we do it on Shabbos. And Rabbi Kiva says Kesidur b'Erev Pesach. He says like the Siddur b'Erev Pesach. So what does this mean? What is this machlokes? We had different pshatim. We have Baya and Rava. Now we have a different pshat. Elama Rava Bar Ula. He says Hachi Ketani. He says this is what it means. Kesidur b'chol the alma. Like the time that it's normally the Talmud, they're normally shach the Talmud, which is at 8.5 hours of the day. Kach sidra b'Shabbos the alma. That's when we do it on a regular Shabbos. I mean, it's not talking over here by Pesach. It's the time that you do it on a regular weekday. That's 8.5 hours a day. You do it on Shabbos at the same time. Now, even though on Shabbos you don't have the Dorim and the Dovid, and as we said that during the week we are ma'acher the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. We don't do it at the first possible instance. We don't do it at 6.5 hours of the day, even those reason Magdim el mitzvahs. We're ma'acher, we do it at 8.5 hours of the day, because you can't be makrim the Dorim and the Dovis after the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim. So we're ma'acher, we delay it to 8.5 hours a day in order to accommodate the Dorim and the Dovis. Now on Shabbos you don't have that consideration because you're not makrim Nidar Medos on Shabbos. Nevertheless, Rav Shmuel says it's at the same time, 8.5 hours a day. But Rabbi Kiva says no. Kesidra b'Erev Pesach dalma. He says that on Shabbos it's like what you normally do on Erev Pesach, which is on 7.5 hours a day. You shech the Talmud at 7.5 hours a day. Erev Pesach, that's what you do in Shabbos as well. Kach sidra b'Shabbos dalma. That's on a regular Shabbos. And the Mishnah says that Erev Pesach is at 7.5 hours a day, whether it's a weekday or Shabbos. Divrakol, it's going according to everybody because they're not discussing, this machlokes isn't discussing a Erev Pesach at all. It's discussing a regular Shabbos. So, b'maika miflagi, what's the machlokes? What's the machlokes whether on Shabbos, a regular Shabbos, you shech the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim 8.5 or 7.5 hours of the day? B'maika miflagi, big zeras in the Dorim unadovas kamiflagi. If it were geyser on Dorim unadovas, Rabbi Shmuel sover geyser Shabbos atuchol. He says even though essentially on Shabbos you could make the Talmud earlier, because you're not makriv nidar unadovas on Shabbos, but nevertheless we want to keep it uniform because otherwise we're afraid that you'll make it earlier during the weekday and shorten the time where people can be bring their nidar and nidovas. So therefore, we want to keep it uniform, and we're not makdamid on Shabbos, and so that it doesn't come to a problem for Nidar and Dovis that you might make be shech the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim earlier on a weekday and shorten the time when people can bring the Nidar and Dovis. Rabbi Kiva savar loy gazrin. Rabbi Kiva says no, we're not geyser and Shabbos. There's no need to delay the Talmud Shel Ben Arbaim, so we can make it earlier. Well, if you're not geyser, why don't you do it at the first possible opportunity and do it even at 6.5 hours of the day? Why at 7.5? Because the more answers kasavar musafim kainu levazichin. Because Rabbi Kiva holds that first, the order is first the korban musa, if you're makra on Shabbos, the korban musa, and after that, you're makta, the levina that's in the bezichin. So therefore, musafim b'sheish, you do the musaf at the 6th hour, and bezichin b'sheva. V'avel b'sheva mechsa, you do the tamid at sheva mechsa. Meisvei, the more asks a kasha, meisvei, so we had different interpretations. So this was the interpretation of Rabba Bar Ula, which the machlokes is really not to do with Erev Pesach. It's talking about a regular Shabbos. But we had the shitas before of Abaya and Rava that it was dealing with Erev Pesach. So Meisvel asks you kasha Talmid Kol Hashana Kula Karav Kel Chos. The Talmud is during the year, during a regular day of the year. It's in the normal hour. Nishchat b'shmeina mechsa. You shecht it at 8.5 hours. V'karav etesha mechsa. and you're makter it on 9.5 hours. Uve Erev Pesach, and Erev Pesach nishchat b'shavu mechsa, it's shachted at 7.5, a kar b'shmeina mechsa. That's when it is on a regular Erev Pesach. Chal liyais b'Shabbos, if Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos. Kechal liyais b'Sheni b'Shabbos, it's like it falls out on a weekday, like for instance on a Monday, Div Rav Shmuel. So apparently Rav Shmuel holds that if Erev Pesach it falls out on a Shabbos, it's just like any other Erev Pesach, and it's at 7.5 hours of the day. And Rabbi Kiva Omer Kisidra Erev Pesach. And Rabbi Kiva says, no, it's like a Sidur of Erev Pesach. So what does that mean? L'chera, if Rabbi Shmuel means it's like a regular Erev Pesach, Rabbi Kiva would be therefore saying it's like if Erev Pesach falls out on Erev Shabbos. So therefore, he would hold that it's at 6.5 hours of the day. So Bishlama Labaya Nicha, according to Abaya, it's good. That's the way he understands Rabbi Shmuel. That he understands Rabbi Shmuel that it's 7.5 hours of the day. And Rabbi Akiva would be holding that it's at 6.5 hours of the day. It's like an Erev Pesach that falls out on Erev Shabbos. Elul Rav Kasha, but according to Rav it's a Kasha, because according to Rav, he interprets Rabbi Shmuel, he says, we're a chayish l'michmar bas. We're a chayish that the meat will get spoiled if you do it so early, the meat will get spoiled during the heat. And therefore he says that according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's at 8.5 hours of the day. It's like a regular Talmud that's during the regular year. So according to Rav, it's shver. Rava says, no, don't interpret it to say that it's kechal b'sheni b'Shabbos like it falls on a Monday. Don't interpret to mean like if it's an Erev Pesach that falls on Monday. So meaning, you're saying that it's Erev Pesach is a Erev Pesach if that it's on Chal Liyos b'Shabbos. If Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, you're saying it's like a regular Erev Pesach. No, that's not what it means. Ela'ema b'Sheni b'Shabbos alma. Not like a Monday, not like a weekday of Erev Pesach falls out on a Monday. It's like a regular weekday. That it's at 8.5 hours, which is exactly what Rabbi Shmuel says. That it's the Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. Since we're concerned about Michmer Balsar, it's like a regular day, not like a regular Erev Pesach. It's like a regular day where you shech the Talmud at 8.5 hours. Mesa, I'll ask you a question. Chal liyos b'Shabbos. If Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, Gesidra kol Ashana Kula. It's like the regular year. Div Rabbi Shmuel. And Rabbi Kiva Omer Gesidra Be'erev Pesach the Alma. So over here, it would seem to be masha that if it's Chal liyos b'Shabbos, that if Erev Pesach falls on a Shabbos, it's like a regular, like the entire year, Div Rabbi Shmuel, that it is at 8.5 hours. And Rabbi Kiva says, Kisidra Be'erev Pesach Alma, that Erev Pesach rather on Shabbos, Erev Pesach on Shabbos is like a regular Erev Pesach at 7.5 hours. So Bish, according to Rav, it's good. That's exactly what he says. Elal Kasha, but according to Abaya, it's fair, because according to Abaya, he says that according to Rabbi Shmuel, it's at 7.5 hours. So over here, it says over here, it's like a regular, like the time of the regular Talmud, which is 8.5 hours. Amar lach Abaya says, Lo yitema kesidra kol hashana. Don't learn it over here to mean like it's like a regular day, which means 8.5 hours. Ela ema kesidra kol hashanim kula. But rather say it's like the order of the regular years when Erev Pesach falls out on a weekday and not on a Shabbos, which means that it's at 7.5 hours, Div Rabbi Shmuel. And Rabbi Kiva Omer Kesidra Erev Pesach Shechal Liyos Be'erev Shabbos, and Rabbi Kiva says it's like Erev Pesach that falls on an Erev Shabbos, which is at 6.5 hours. So now we're coming to a different topic. Tonu Rabbanon Now the Gemara is going to discuss different halachas now about the hakrava. How do we know? Where's the makor that you can't be makav a korban before the Talmud Shel Shachar? Like we mentioned before, the very first korban has to be the Talmud Shel Shachar, and generally speaking, the last one, the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. How do I know that you can't be makav anything before the Talmud Shel Shachar? Talmud Loimar v'orach aleha oila. It says he arranges it on it, the oila upon it, upon the mizbeach. My Talmudah. How do we learn out from that? Omarova ha-oila oila rishayna. It says v'orach aleha ha-oila, the oila. Which is the oila that's mentioned first? Is the Talmud Shel Shachar. Ha-oila, that's the first one that is brought on the mizbeach. Uminayin she'ein davar karvach Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. How do I know that the last one is the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim? Talmud Loimar v'hikter aleh chalvei hashlomim. It says that you're makter on it the chalvei hashlomim, the fats of the shlomim. My Talmudah, where do we learn out from here? How do we see that? Amar Abaye, aleh shlomim. On it is the shlomim, meaning on the Talmud Shel Shachar, that's when you're makter of the shlomim, but not after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. Aleh shlomim, v'loy al chaverta shlomim, but not on the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. On the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, nothing is after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. The shlomim is after the Talmud Shel Shachar. Masif l'rava a'ema shlomim hu d'loy nakru. Maybe that's only the shlomim. But maybe other korbanos, oilos nakriv, maybe oilos, for instance, you could be makriv after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. Ela amarova hashlomim. It says hashlomim. It says that v'hikter aleh chalvei hashlomim, which we darshan shlomim is a loshon of hashlam, of complete. Hashlomim aleh hashlam kol korbanos kula. On that, the other korbanos have to be completed after the Talmud Shel Shachar, but not after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. Ton Rabbanan, Talmud Kaidem LePesach. The Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim is before the Korban Pesach. So an exception to the rule is the Korban Pesach, which comes after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. And Pesach Kaidem LeKeteris. And the Korban Pesach comes before the Keteris. The Keteris, that they burn the Keteris on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, that is done, it's done twice a day, and the Shel Bein Arbaim is even after the Korban Pesach. So Talmud Kodim LePesach, Pesach Kodim LeKeteris. So the order is the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, the Korban Pesach, the Keteris, and Keteris Kodemus L'Neris. And after that is the lighting of the menorah. That's the order. So why is that? Why do we have this order? Why do we say that even though we say Aleh Hashlam Kol HaKarbanos Kulam, why is the Korban Pesach later? Because the Ucher Dovid Shenemar Ba'erev U'Bein Harbayim, by the Korban Pesach it says Sham Tizbech Chazal Pesach, it says Ba'arev. So it says it should be done in the evening. And it also says Bein Harbayim. It says Shachtu es kol kahal das Yisrael Bein Harbayim. So Lagabi the Korban Pesach, it has a double loshon of in the evening. So it says it twice. It says Ba'arev and it says Bein Harbayim. So that should become later. It should be delayed. Lidover shalei nemar boy Ba'arev ela Bein Harbayim b'lvad. That should come later. It's a further evening. It's later on after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, which it doesn't say Ba'arev. It only says Bein Arbaim. Well, if that's the case, we should say the same thing by the Keteris V'Neres. Say the same thing. Nami Niknamu LePesach. They should be before the Pesach. The Pesach should be after it, because we should say the same drosha. Yuchar Dovar Shneimar Boy Ba'arev Bein Arbaim. The Pesach, which it says both Ba'arev and Bein Arbaim, that should come later. That should be delayed. L'dover Shalei Nemer Boy Bein Arbaim B'lvad. For that which only says Bein Arbaim. So again, we should say the same svara, and the Pesach should be last, just like we say it's after the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim. It should also come after the Keteris and the Neres. Where it says Shani Hasam Damid Rahmana Oisai. Yes, but we have a separate drasha that says Oisai, that Davka, the Neres and the Keteris are last. What's that? Where do we see that? This drasha, the sun, it says in the Brisa, Me'erev ad Boker. It says Me'erev ad Boker, from the evening to the morning, Yarach. So we darshan Me'erev ad Boker. Firstly, we darshan Tein La Midosa. How much oil do you put into the menorah? You put in the measurement of oil is a chatzi loy, half of a loy. Tein La Midosa Shetei Doilek is Me'erev ad Boker. You have to give a standard measurement that even on the longest winter nights, it can burn from evening until morning. So that shear is a chatzi log. So that's the amount of oil that's placed in the menorah. Davar acher, we learn additionally, that there's no avodah that's kosher, me'erev ad boker, only this, me'erev ad boker. So it has to be, this is me'erev ad boker, and nothing else is kosher. So this is the only thing that you can be, the avodah that you can do from the evening to the morning, meaning this is the last avodah. My taima, Amr Kro, it says, Yarach oisa Aaron avona me'erev boker. It says that they should arrange it from the evening to the morning, and it says, Yarach oisai. What is done from the evening to the morning? Oisai me'erev ad boker, only the menorah. That's the only thing that's kosher in that period of time. Vein davar acher me'erev ad boker. And there's nothing else that's kosher. So the Pesach can't be after the menorah. This is the last thing. This is the only thing that's kosher that time. V'iskesh k'teres l'neiros. And there's a hekesh, the k'teres to the neiros. So it says the hekesh between the two. And just like you can't have nothing after the neiros, there's nothing that's after the k'teres. So since we have that hekesh, therefore the Pesach has, the Korban Pesach has to precede it. And the Pesach has to come before it. So that's why we have this order over here. So we say the Tamid is before the Pesach comes after the Tamid, and then comes the Ketairis, and the Neiros come after that, because the Oisoi, Yarach Oisoi are on the bottom of Erev at Boker.